we like, if you're gonna do a cover,
I know.
Canadian cover.
What's your favorite
I
cover?
don't have Canadian covers, so I'll be.
For you.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and we replay the show on
Wednesdays.
as well. So, and then what we're talking about is just, further editing that show. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
1 minute.
1 minute.
That's smooth.
You just let it happen naturally there. Don't rush it.
I'm not going to be able to see this. You should be able to see the live because we're trying to hook everything up.
Okay.
It's
Paul Kafka. Is that
Yeah,
how you pronounce
sure.
it? Kafka? As in Franz Kafka?
Yeah, that's me.
Kafka. Kafka.
Some people say Kafka, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about it is, this is not for live, it's just the tuning of my guitar. See,
Yeah. That's great.
Okay, we're live on YouTube.
That's good. Use that all the time.
Children of all ages, this is from the Cat Fiddle, corner of John Street, south of Augusta, Hamilton's only pub. Now, our host, who has never been drunk, but is often overserved, famous.
More gold from Gary Greenland, everybody. Thank you so much. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Shake It Up Radio. Great to see you, Gary.
And you, it's been a heck of a week.
It's been a heck of a week, as always.
Indeed. And a lot of things happening.
Town happened here at the Cat Fiddle, happened in the world.
Indeed.
Yes.
I've got a hard copy of the Cat Fiddle's menu.
Well, let's not keep the people waiting.
See?
Yeah, that's great. It looks awesome.
See? We're on YouTube right now and on the Canuck Tunes YouTube channel, as well as the Canuck Tunes online radio Facebook page.
Well, we're everywhere.
And we're on CanuckTunes.ca. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming in. We are at the Cat and Fiddle. And going back to the menu, Kimberly had the potato skins. She couldn't finish them.
This morning.
Yeah, this morning.
Wow.
She was in that kind of hangry mood.
Potato skin morning. Didn't Gordon Lightfoot write a song, Potato Skin Morning?
I think so.
Yeah, I thought so.
Either that or it was Stompin' Tom.
One of our Canadian icons.
So it could be Celine Dion. It's, it happens. But potato skins, like I said, cauliflower bites, they can be spiced or not, depending on your taste. You got the apple platter, which is new. The spinach dip, which is new. The chicken wings, they have chicken wing specials on Monday. The Nashville chicken sandwich is new. The cottage pie, which is a seasoned ground beef with creamy mashed potatoes and baked to golden perfection.
Cottage pie, take on the shepherd's pie.
Steak and tots, juicy grilled steaks with tater tots and the side of house-made sauce and garlic steak chimichurri.
I'm not going to be able to talk anymore. My mouth there's a tsunami watering in my mouth right now.
And gnocchi has finally, they've been talking about gnocchi for a while, so they finally made the jump. And gnocchi is on the menu, and I know it's made in-house made out of potatoes.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
So, but other than that, it's Fish Friday here at the Cat and Fiddle. We got another great afternoon for not necessarily a long weekend, but it can be if you're here.
You can make it as long as you want.
Right. And important for this day, I'm not going to get into it fully completely now, but very important to music, period. 1931, September 17th, RCA Victor introduced the first 33 1/3 long play record.
Wow.
Now, this was a little, it's 1931, so you're going into the Depression. The players for said 33 1/3 albums came in at $94.
Which was like about $14,000 back then?
Yes,
roughly.
thereabouts. Right. You can get, they said about $1,200, rounding up. But you can get turntables for thousands upon thousands now,
Yes.
depending on your taste. And so, but because of the expense, it dove because you're going into the Depression.
Yes.
So it didn't pick up again until after the war in 1948. And then shortly thereafter, I believe, they introduced the 45 RPM.
Right.
So a little bit of history. That's like, okay, thank you, RCA Victor.
Major technological leaps
Yes.
from the 78.
Tailed instead of scratching in it. Being on digital.
Fantastic.
We don't have vinyl in the house.
But we are analog. We can reach out and touch each other right now. If
We
wanted
can,
to.
yes.
We're not going
very
to, but if we wanted to, we could.
Yeah, we're on camera, but
Yeah.
exactly. So
Fantastic.
we got a great show. Alfie Smith is coming up later this afternoon, and then we have Art Trist. The guest escapes me.
It's Gene
Gene
Gertzman and Norm Ayers, better known as the Arthur Duo,
Arthur.
a kind of a bluegrass traditional. And right here, we have with us in the room our first guest. We're so lucky to have this gentleman. He's a blues man through and through. Chris here.
Yay!
Welcome to Shake Up Radio, Paul. And why don't we start off with a song, and then we'll have a little chat about all things Paul Kafka.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm Paul Kafka, and this is my story. I was born in Eastern Europe with a guitar in my hand. Time I was 16, I could play homes as never can. I could play on the streets, some rock and roll, some good old blues. From the thing from down to town, in my one-arm blue suede shoes. And in rock and I feel rolling on the shores of Baltic Sea. Now it's time for you, oh Canada, come on and rock with me. One day I got myself a ticket and I flew away out west. I decided on Ontario because I heard it was the best. And I met some local characters as I played in local bands. And I guess I had ambition that not everyone understood. All across this rolling free. But now I'm here in Hamilton, so come on and rock with me. I'll rock Barry, Kingston, Pembroke, Markham, Thunder Bay, Dryden, Guelph, Arias, Stratford, London, Italy, Windsor, Hamilton, and Cambridge, Kitchener, Falls, Sudbury, Mississauga, Woodstock, Langton, Waterloo, Sault Ste. Marie. USA, NYC, Chicago, Nashville, Memphis, Denver, and LA. I'll be playing giant stadiums, selling millions of CDs. I'll be driving Cadillacs, I'll buy with royalties and fees. But for now, I'll just be here, trying to get onto CBC. I'll be working here, come on and rock with me. I love Belleville, Demons, Owen Sound, St. Thomas, and North Bay, Brantford, Sarnia, and Honor, Ottawa, North Lake, Richmond, Hilbert, 7 County, Greenwich, Rockville, Victory, Welland, Oshawa, Port Colborne, Burlington, St. Andrews. I'll be rocking, I'll be rolling all across the storm. But now I'm here at Cat Fiddle. Come on and rock with me.
Phenomenal. What a wordsmith you are, Paul. You just told us your whole story.
Cities, I think there's 32 cities from Ontario in this song, and I think there are about 4 that are missing because I couldn't fit them in the song. One that I couldn't fit, I remember, is Peterborough. I'm sorry, Peterborough, if you're listening right now.
And have you played, how many of those cities and towns have you played? Quite a few?
I have played, I think, a lot of them, maybe at least 60%.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a little folder on my myself in front of the city sign.
Nice, that's very cool, yeah.
That's a
So-
great idea.
You're from, your origin, you're from Eastern Europe?
Yeah, I'm originally from the USSR, from the Soviet Union. I was born in a city called Leningrad. It's now known as St. Petersburg.
Right?
So it's north, but not all the way.
Wow. And you were exposed to Western music by secretly smuggled in cassette tapes?
Well, that is a whole story that I can tell you about it. Yes, I was exposed to the music on the cassette tapes, but my dad used to make bootleg tapes and even vinyls. So the story is some of the people, usually commercial sailors, would be able to smuggle in a vinyl in their very wide.
Right, yeah.
And then there was a process for replicating those vinyl records. They used discarded X-ray film for that. So they would take this film, cut it out in a circle.
Those big plates.
This very flimsy
Yes,
type of
yes.
thing. And there's a whole process of how they would heat it up and somehow press it against the actual original vinyl. And then that would be a copy. Of course, it would sound terrible, and because it's so flimsy, it would only be good for like 6 or 7 plays. Because after that, the needle would just rip that hole in it.
Right.
But yeah, that was the way. And a lot of people don't believe me when I tell this story, but we used to call it jazz on bones or rock on bones because that was discarded X-ray film, so there was someone's chest or someone's arm. Or
Well, there were
something like
pictures
that.
actually on the records.
Yeah, like
Wow.
on the actual vinyl floppy disk, I guess you could call it. Yeah, and there's a whole article on Wikipedia if people want to learn more about the process and how it worked, so they can go and look up jazz on bones.
Jazz on bones. That's fascinating. That's how. That's the same way a lot of the blues records reached Britain. Is through sailors bringing them in the 50s and early 60s,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
they were passed on to the Stones and Eric Clapton, and all those kids were exposed to it and took it and shook it up and realigned it and then did their own kind of take on it. Is that what was happening in Russia at the time? In the
Oddly
USSR?
enough, yes.
Right.
Like in the 70s, when the reel-to-reels came in, the replication process became much faster because you can just plug in the reel-to-reels into your
Take the
record
record.
player.
Right.
Yeah, and you're gonna make copies, and then sometimes. I wasn't alive to see that, but I've heard stories from like older musicians who told me that when what's the whole song Stairway to Heaven, like all that songs, the album just came out, and the very next day a copy of it was already in the Soviet Union, and most of the people will already have listened to it through the night, and they would be able to play that riff, the famous one.
That
Yeah,
fast.
so yeah, like it was a very well-oiled machine at some point. I
Wow.
think by the 70s, yeah. But it was still, it was still illegal. We could get in trouble for listening.
That's what I was going to ask you. Would people be hauled off and taken to jail or
Yeah.
taken to court if they were caught with the Western music?
I don't think they would be put to jail because we still need workers.
Right.
That's something like a misdemeanor. That's not a felony. But by all means, they would be monitored and potential disruptors of the lifestyle. So yeah.
And was there like to go along with the record kind of listening people, was there like a kind of an underground live music scene there that
Oh, yeah.
musicians would play the blues and play Western music?
Oh, absolutely. They sometimes take famous themes from contemporary at that time, use music, and then they would rework it to sound a little more acceptable for the Politburo, so that it would be more about the social realism and how it is with folk music is around Bob Dylan's time and after that. Instead of singing about the problems of the society, people start singing about themselves as a mirror of the society, right? So it became individual, and that way it kind of flies on the.
You could get it, yeah, exactly, yeah. Or use it metaphorically, like the old blues singers would and the spirituals would be metaphors about themselves, but they're really talking about the man, obviously. Right?
Absolutely.
Whoever's hobnail boot was on your throat at the time.
Yeah. So there was a lot of those undertones, and people would be like, if you could get through that and understand. And I remember it was 19, I think, oh god, it was 86 or 87. The first official record by a foreign songwriter was actually Paul McCartney's album back in the USSR.
Yeah.
It was the first time he made a deal with Melodia, which was the record company, the only record company in the USSR. He released that song, and I had that album. I used to listen to it. It was all in Cyrillic. So, and then I think it was a whole year before it actually was released in the Western world. So
Right.
we got to hear it first.
So you were still there in the 80s. When
Oh
did you
yeah,
come
yeah.
over?
No, I came to Canada in 2009.
Oh, 2009. Wow.
So yeah, relatively fresh.
So did you have a history of playing? Did you already have kind of a music career over there that you were playing out and making records?
Yeah, I'm always reluctant to call it a career. It's a vocation for sure.
Right, the
But like
vocation.
making
Yeah.
money with music is still hard.
Yeah, well, everybody in this room knows that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I have this book on my shelf at home. Real artists have daytime jobs. So everybody does something on the
Obscurity
side.
is the new fame.
Indeed, yeah, that too. But yeah, I had a rockabilly trio, and we played in St. Petersburg a few times. I started my first band was in high school, as everybody else's. Before that, I was in music school for accordion. So my original instrument is an accordion. I didn't play guitar until I was about 15 or 16 years old, and I was studying accordion for about 7 years, like 4 days a week, so it was pretty intense. Yeah, we get to learn how to sing, we get to learn how to play the piano, like the whole 9 yards.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just
Like a music academy?
Yeah, it's called music, specialist music schools in the USSR. Yeah, and, I did that, and then I learned a lot of the songs like on the accordion, like Del Shannon and the Beatles and those kind of things.
On the accordion, nice.
They don't sound as good, I'll be honest, but again, if I were to break out the accordion these days, I think it would be quirky to play rock and roll on the accordion. Like,
Yeah.
But
Accordion is
yeah,
a beautiful instrument.
it is. It's a beat instrument, so they all sound like it's like harmonica or saxophone. Like there's no people who hate them.
No, it kind of cuts right through you. Yeah.
So there was that, and and then eventually I took a little bit of a break for family reasons, and then I came here, and a couple of years after settling in and finding my footing, I was first in the band as a lead guitar player, and then I decided to have my own band. It was called the 25 Rockers after Eddie Cochran's song.
25 Rock.
25 Rock, yeah. It was pretty competitive. I played with some folks here in Hamilton, Ginger St. James, the King Jives.
King Jives, yeah.
Yeah, we played on the same bill a few times. Great guys, very true to the rockabilly, but I always kind of move a little bit towards this kind of like slightly more psychobilly, punkish attitude.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
Were you based in Toronto then?
at the time I was based in Toronto, and then last month I moved to Kitchener. So I'm in Kitchener.
Did you circle around Big Rude Jake at all when you were
Yes.
in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've met him a couple times. He played what was it, Dakota Tavern, and it was like towards the end of his life, and nobody knew that he had
Right.
leukemia and everything. And then I learned later that he used to play a lot at the retirement homes. He would go and bring his, and I have been doing that since he passed away. It's almost like a niche opener. So I started getting bookings at retirement homes.
That's phenomenal.
And I play old school rock and roll and country music.
You must light up the roots.
So yeah, I'm just trying to keep his legacy alive because he's such a signature figure in the history of this genre in the country. So
No, respect to you, man. That's very
try my
admirable.
best.
Yeah. You want to
Big
do another
shoes.
song and then we'll keep
Yeah.
chatting later on?
I a few low carb diets where you're not allowed to eat carbs, and like you can eat like tomatoes and cucumbers, but nothing. Like I'm a Slav, right? Like I want my potatoes.
Oh yeah.
And I realized that in the schedule that I was on, it was like 4 days you were like fasting, and then on the 5th day you can have one we call a cheat you want. And some people who are on the same diet, they usually just have a poutine or a big burger or something like that. And I realized that the carb that I missed the most was Guinness. So my cheat meal would be 2 pints of Guinness.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's around the time I wrote this song. It's called "Keep Thinking of You." They say that all of king's horses, all of king's men, could not bring us back together again. I tried all of king's women, all of his drugs, but none of these vices can steady my blood. I still have the fever, and all I can do is keep thinking of you. I know that you saw me for what I could be, for anger and craving, a pulsing in me. The power of food only brings back the pain. I need you to give back my mojo again. You see I'm all shaking, and all I can do is thinking of you. I won't change your mind, but I won't change your heart. We're different people, we're taking apart. The thought of you chokes me, it's like a garage. Now I'm over things that are not. They say that all of these voices and all of these men cannot bring us back together again. I tried all these women and all of the drugs, but none of the vices could stand in my blood. I still have the fever, and all I can do is thinking of you. I can change your mind, but I won't change your heart. We're different species, we're decades apart. The thought of you chokes me, it's like a garrote. I'm only things that I'm not. No, I won't change your mind, but I will change your heart. It's better for us to stay like you apart. The thought of you chokes me, it's like a garrote. I'm only things that I'm not.
Beautiful. Nice work, Paul. Very kind of 50 foundation of your where you started laying your bricks as a craftsman, as a musician. That was your
Yeah, I grew up. I think about 3 or 4 years old, and I grew up listening to the bootleg Beatles tapes. So my older brother, who's 6, 7 years my senior, would go to school and leave behind his tape recorder. So we're just listening on pretty much non-stop on repeat. And even before I could speak a word of English, I would learn a lot of their songs phonetically.
right. Yeah.
And then I went to the English immersion school, and I ended up in high school in Maryland in the States. But like as my command of English language was improving, I realized that the Beatles songs were pretty silly. A lot of them. I mean, later ones were silly and drug infused, but the early ones were just silly. And
Drugs will make you silly. Drugs will make you silly
Yeah.
sometimes. We've all been there. So you came over about 15 years ago. You came to Canada. You made the kind of the permanent move.
Yeah, it was May 2009.
And was there like an impetus behind that? Was it musically driven? Was it just life driven? What was?
I think it was mostly life driven. I think, looking back on that, it was around the time when my son was born in 2003, and around the time of this generation in Russia. So, I mean, not to everybody, a lot of people were like later waves of immigrants, but for me, it was quite clear that, I need to get out of here for the sake of my son. So,
Things
it
were
was.
kind of freedoms and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're getting?
Yeah, I think it's not so much about freedoms. Like people who live there, I still have family and relatives both in Russia and Ukraine. But like the tension that was artificially created on so many levels between just Russia and the rest of the world, I think it was kind of a little bit there the whole time. Yeah, and I didn't like it. I was hoping, when the 90s came, I was about 14 years old, and I was like, oh yeah, freedom now. We don't have to play.
Everything's glasnost, everything's open.
It was a little bit the realization that, hey, there's still rules, and they're kind of changing up. So, yeah, without getting too political, it was just not the right environment that I wanted to be in, and wanted to, have my family grow, raise my child. So that was kind of on that.
And you'd already been exposed to Russian culture. You went to high school in Maryland. Was it?
It was an exchange thing. So I did finish high school in Maryland. I was there for a few months, but yeah.
You got a taste of what it was like.
Yeah, and that kind of I don't know if I can say that on the kind of one was having had the taste of the American culture was the reason why I didn't want to go to America and I wanted to go to Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we are in Canuck tunes.
Yeah,
right now.
I'm really proud of being Canadian by choice because there's options. There's Australia, like English-speaking countries, such as the language that I speak, almost as good as Russian, right?
Right.
So there's the choices are you got to go to an English-speaking country, at least at the time, where you could work remotely, those sort of things. So Canada was a pretty natural choice.
Right.
That's the
We all the culture of music crosses the lines. Like Canadian, the Americana music is also a derivative of music from Ireland and Scotland, and then it mashes up with the blues and jazz.
Yeah.
Comes up to Canada, changes things up a bit, goes to the British Isles. So that kind of Western music culture is not just American, but it's Western civilization, right?
Well, American music didn't penetrate, as far as I understand it. There's probably people online who will correct me, but I understand that like this true American music, in the sense of bluegrass, it did not come to Canada until the Vietnam War, because all the people who didn't want to go to war, they came from the States to Canada, right, to avoid the conscription. And they brought the bluegrass music to Canada. We did not have it as a nation up until that moment. I mean, there probably were pockets, I would imagine, but that was before Newfoundland joined, right?
Newfoundland was.
So it probably technically was not Canadian music right now. And now I'm a massive fan of Canadian music. Again, I've been honored to meet and play with a lot of Canadian musicians, and there's some that I haven't met but I would like to. I think my first few years in Canada were very formative for me, having that unique feel of Canadian Americana music. I guess there's a Canadiana, but I think Canadian is very narrow because there's a lot of people who don't play, I guess, Canadian music. Luke Doucette and the White Falcon before he did the whole thing with music, right? Like that was a very influential. His album Bloods to Reach was very influential to me. Lindsay Ortega. Little Red Boots, I still think that's one of the top 3 albums ever made. Like the other 2 would probably be Unplugged by Eric Clapton, and I'm not sure probably Rubber Soul by the Beatles. I'm a huge fan of that one. So there's a lot of Canadian music in my top 10 list, and I like to go back to it and see what's going on. Of the recent ones, I really enjoyed Orville Peck, for example. I know he's an American guy, but
Sorry, say again?
Orville Peck.
Orville Peck, yes, the masked cowboy there.
Yeah, the masked
cowboy.
Very, very interesting take on Americana. I like when people do a little bit of experimentation.
It's a performance piece, not just the music, but the whole kind of persona, right?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Oh, Gary Greenland has a question. Yes, Gary.
Comparatively then, as you say here, you have pockets here and this and that kind of music. Would it not be the same back in the US? Yes, huh?
You mean pockets of music?
Different pockets of different genres.
Regionally, different styles in Russia?
Is that not as
oddly
prevalent?
enough, not in rock music.
Okay.
So the one thing that I have been incredibly privileged and blessed with is growing up in Leningrad. And Leningrad had the first official rock club. And the rock club means bands are members of this rock club. And there's some sort of patronage from the government, I guess. So they at least let you play concerts that are public. A signature for the development of the original Russian rock sound. I am again just living and growing in that environment where you don't have to go to another city and to listen to good music.
Right.
And a lot of the bands from all over including Moscow bands that were like traditionally Moscow based. They would come to Leningrad to be in the club, to play in front of people semi, officially and those sort of things. So I think the club started in the 70s. I came up in the 80s, like late 80s was its absolute like marvelous time with so many bands doing so many different experiments with music. There was a band called Nol Zero, which I think I was influenced by it so much because it was a punk band, but they had an accordion as the lead instrument. Actually, it was a button accordion, so it was this kind of like what do you call it? I guess you just call it a button accordion. And I remember, being a young, teenager and learning to play the accordion in like an official environment with the teachers, and they teach you the solfege and the theory and all this kind of thing. And I was just like, I just want to play rock and roll on the accordion. So it kind of is a part of me now too.
Punk band with 2 accordions.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I would think it would there would be an underground culture. Like I only read what I read, right? And because you were the part of the meat and potatoes of that populace, it sort of makes you wonder. With all this news about unnews and misinformation, you just want to pick someone's brain like yourself.
Yeah.
And what's it like? What is it like, really, truly, on that side of the fence? Are you that oppressed? Is it that competitive for scratch? And then you got other people going there, and it's like CTV is like, oh, everything's here, everything's great, blah blah blah, right? So it's interesting to hear that perspective.
I think it's like that everywhere. I think there's, Mark Twain said, if you're reading a paper, so if you don't read papers, you're uninformed. If you read papers, you're misinformed. So I'm just like you, Gary, in the sense that I like to talk to them. When this last thing, for example, I have a friend who's a bass player. He lives in. Sorry, I always blame out the name of this country. I'm terrible with it's not Bolivia, it's Venezuela. Sorry, yeah. And so I have friends in Venezuela, and I have friends in Colombia. And when this whole thing in Colombia was happening quite recently, I don't know if you heard of the family. They did the same thing as 4 years ago with the Trump. They didn't believe the elections were fair and everything. You read in newspapers, and then there's like left newspapers telling different things, or news online, not necessarily newspapers. And I just phoned my friend on WhatsApp, and I'm like,
What's going on?
Tell me what's going on. Yeah, he was on my previous album. I have a new album coming out soon in the next few months. But my previous album, he played a lot of bass and harmonica on it. And there was like this remote, we never met in person. There was this remote relationship. So I called him and said, Hector, tell me what's going on. And he just told me these are the facts. There's people in the streets, barricades burning, and there's police and this and that. You make of it heads or tails, but he's like.
Yeah.
And that was the same thing that happened to me in 1991 when the Soviet Union broke up, and there was like 1991, 1993, these 2 revolutions.
Yes.
Right? I was just like, I'm just staying at home. I'm waiting until all this settles down because my approach to political activity is through songs. I do not necessarily go out there a lot and into these protests and all those things, but I like to try to encourage people through my art and be the voice of the people. Which leads me to maybe I can play a song about that.
Absolutely, that's a great segue.
Yeah, this is a song from my new album, and I wrote it when I was on tour. I flew out to St. John's, Newfoundland, and then drove all the way down to London, Ontario. 14 days, 14 gigs, and on the road. So
you made $14. No
yeah, about that. Negative, in the red. Yeah,
been there, done that.
Well, one of the things is like an advice if there are any musicians listening, contemplating going on tour, driving, renting a car in Canada, is make sure you return in the same. This song, it's called Banks of Marble. I traveled around this country from sea to sea to sea. It made me wonder things I got to see. I've seen the weary nurses work triple shifts, tired of days. And I heard the in banks, even though they work full time. But the banks are made of marble, with a guard at every door, and their voices stop and silver that the workers stand for. I've seen the rich folks laugh, driving golf balls at their clubs, and they shook hands with politicians while their accounts kept getting up. And I think it's all unfair that some old tracts of land that we cannot afford to challenge their command. I see our people working with their minds and backs and hands, and I swore we'd get together and together make a stand. And we know these banks of marble, and we go every door, and we share those of silver. We are sweating for that we are all sweating for, that we are sweating for.
Fantastic. All copy, everybody. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. You're very dexterous with your toys there and your
A lot of experience.
yes. Oh my
You
God.
made it sound dirty, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. It sounds great. So you made the decision to come, and how was that? How were the nuts and bolts of making that happen? Was that hard to do? Was it easy to do? Did it take a long time to get from
Yeah, it
where you
was-
were to Canada to Toronto?
Yeah, there was at the time there was a program for immigration. It was I believe it's called Federal Skilled Worker. So you have to sort of like fill out a questionnaire.
Like you points
Yeah, answer.
scores?
Yeah, they assign scores like your command of English language, your employability, your work history, your family connections, those sort of things.
Mhm.
The amount of money to support yourself when you land is also a factor. So yeah, took about 3 years. So I had to fill out an application. I had to lie on it, telling I never worked for the KGB and those sort of things. But ended up here.
Yes. Or what about on the other end? Was there any kind of restrictions as far as
No.
to try and keep you there? If you could get the paperwork for you to immigrate to another country, then that was fine.
They didn't know anything about that, right?
Oh, no.
You don't have to report technically.
Okay.
So at the time there weren't any restrictions. I think the only thing, logistically speaking, I think the only thing that one needed to do was inform the like the revenue agency that you have a foreign account in a foreign bank. And I think at the time it wasn't as strict as it became now that people are trying to move their capital over there. Yeah, so I think that was the only thing that I had to do. And I don't know, maybe they're still looking for me there. I haven't come back since. So.
And how long? Important question. How long were you in Canada before you acquired a guitar in your hands again?
Oh, I brought a guitar.
You brought a guitar,
I brought a
yeah.
guitar. There was a guitar that was given to me on my 25th birthday by my friends. They pulled in and bought me, and it's a nice kind of. If you think of Django Reinhardt kind of looking guitar with
nice.
the F rolls and
Yes,
everything.
yes.
It sounds terrible because it's like a Russian Chinese kind of joint thing. It's called. There's a brand on it that says Martinez with a Z, and I couldn't find it online. I don't think it existed, but it was sold in an official music store and everything, and it sounded pretty good. So I brought it over, and it's like my backup guitar. It's like in a case, at home, and I look at it from, and I can still play it.
Nice.
It has a pickup and all and then by now I have multiple guitars.
Oh, yeah, you did there, that's the Gretsch.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a huge
Inspired
fan
by
of
our-
Gretsch's. My first two electric guitars were Gretsch's. I found that as I age and my back is not as spry as it used to be. Gretsch's are pretty heavy because of the hardware on them. You know, the pickups are heavy, the Bixby is heavy, the neck
Sure.
is really heavy because they like the solid headstocks. So I switched to something a little lighter. I played
No,
this.
that, the Snow Slim model.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is Snow Hill Jim for introducing me to this thing. It became my favorite guitar. And the other one I played is the electric Dan Electro.
Oh, Dan Electro, yeah.
I love the sound. I mean, I was always a fan of the sound that Mark Knopfler was able to create in Dire Straits, and he played Dan Electro. Yeah.
He's a hell of a player. He
Yeah.
played a bit of a Gibson Les Paul as well, though, too, no?
I think he had a Fender Strat. I'm not sure. May have had a Gibson. I don't know. All I know is that Dan Electro sounded nice on it.
And they look beautiful.
They did nothing special. It's just the lipstick pickups that
Yeah.
look nice. Yeah. But, in terms of the looks, they're pretty
It's
clean.
kind of that Art Deco
Yeah,
style, though.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple.
Do you know that they
nice lines.
originally were cheap guitars sold at Sears?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're like $3.5 or something.
yeah.
They were cheap, and then suddenly they just go, oh, they actually sound amazing when you plug them in. You know, right?
Yes, yes. So when you got to Canada, you went straight to Toronto?
I hung out in Richmond Hill for a bit, and then I moved to Toronto. Then I moved to Vaughan. Then I moved to Toronto again.
So GTA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to joke about it. All my major intersections until I came here as a Kitchener were on Bathurst Street.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was along holding to say Highway 7, you know, Bloomington, Highway 7, Steeles, and then St. Clair. It's all on Bathurst Street.
Nice. And did you start, did you go in and do some reconnaissance missions at the Horseshoe and the Rib and the Reverb? At least did you dive into
Yeah,
soaking up the
some
live
of
music
those,
scene there?
absolutely. My favorite venue has always been the Cameron House.
Okay.
It's just like you can drop in every day, 3 times a day. You know, they have live music. Usually, on the weekends, there's 3 bands. During weekday nights, I think it's just 2. But I always like to just go there, you know, have a pint, like-minded people.
You know,
And it's
Corn
nice.
Ring? Corn Ring? You know Corn Ring?
No, I don't
He
think
used to play in Cameron House.
everybody has played. I played at the Cameron House last year. I loved it. It's such just the vibe itself of the place is so good. And my second favorite place is Drone Taberna. I don't know if you know. It's just like a block east of the Cameron House, or 2 blocks.
What's it called, sorry?
Drone Taberna. Drone Trom. I think it means sleep in Polish
Oh, yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, or something. So it's a restaurant. They have fantastic food. It's on Queen and Augusta. So just south of the Kensington Market. And they have music going on up until like 7 in the morning every weeknight.
Really?
Yeah, they have great rigs there. I recommend everybody who's
Like an old
Yeah,
style
and the
blues
place-
can.
yeah, the place is always filled.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like always people listening. So for those who are trying to break into, like I had a friend come over from Ukraine, and he ended up playing there, and you know.
It's like an open jam, people just.
No, it's like you get scheduled, you
Yeah.
get which they promote, they announce, and all those sort of things. It's easy to get a spot because there's so
They
many
play all
spots.
night.
Yeah,
Wow.
they play all night. They open all night.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's all kind of music. So I heard that this. You can get a singer-songwriter, you can get a jazz band, you can get experimental, you can get sometimes pop, and sometimes it would be world music. Like I played there a couple of years back, and we were playing a late show. I think we finished at 2 o'clock in the morning, and after us there was a Persian, I think 5-piece kind of folk band that came on, and I was just like, I like that because it was a Persian folk music. Live. I want to hear that, and it sounded fantastic.
No doubt. Is it kind of a pass the hat operation?
A little bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's a guarantee involved because again, the place is always full. The food is amazing, so people go there and they spend money.
That's great.
They do great, and the owners. I just shout out to Misha and Agatha. They so good with the artists. They treat everybody very well. How everything is set up, and patrons. Everybody loves that place. place. Yeah. And again, not to say Cameron House is smaller, so it's more intimate. That place is a little bit bigger, but again, there's so much going on there that I highly recommend.
Very cool. Very cool. So you want to do another song, Paul?
Sure. Since we're on the topic of Toronto, I think it was 5 years ago that my band and I got to play the beaches, and it was in the middle of July, so really, really hot. And you play, like, it's a street festival, so they shut down Queen Street East, and on every corner there's a band, and you have to communicate with the bands across the street. I'm like, this is my set, you guys take 45, and then they come out, and you take 45, and it was like 3 days in a row for 3 hours, 7 to 11, or something like that. And I remember at some point I was talking to a friend of mine who was in another band, also a guitar player, and we were having beers. And, it was like 9,000 people on the street, and a really, really tall lady walked by us and turned to me and said, "I once had a girl. She was 6'3". Leaned down to me. Crazy for her. I once had a girl. She weighed 300 pounds. When we were fooling around, she beat me right to the ground. But that didn't matter. Crazy for her. Oh, you can tell me the sizes matter. Drawing schematics and charts. Trust me, I know much better. Mine's always loose for hearts. I once had a girl. She wore a size 12 shoes. When we went out to dance, oh, I could get bruised. But that day there, I didn't mind getting hurt. Crazy. Listen to me, cats. I'll tell you just like this. You got to love your woman, no matter what size she is. It's such a simple thought, and I tend to make her just be crazy for her. Oh yeah, just be crazy for her. Oh yeah, just be crazy for her. And someone's got me in trouble in London.
That song got you in trouble?
London, Ontario. Yeah, we played that song as the last song of the night, and someone came up to us and said that was too political.
Well, you got cancelled in London.
Yeah. No, I love London for a variety of reasons. I used to have a residency there. There was a place called Blue Dogs.
Blue Dogs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used to play there all the time, and it didn't survive the pandemic, unfortunately, like so many places. And I moved over to the Scots Corner.
Oh yeah, he's booking that too.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Brian Watson is booking.
Brian Watson, yeah.
I think Brian has been more, managing the kitchen. I'm not sure actually what's going on.
Sadly, he lost his fiance.
Yeah, that was a bit of a tragedy in his life recently.
Well, London's always been a big live music town for sure.
Yeah, and it was always massive on blues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you? So when you came over, did you? How did you want to establish yourself here? Did you start with open mics? Like, how did you become part of the music community and network? Was that that's usually the entry point for most of us?
Yeah.
At the open jams, at the open mics.
Open mic's always a good thing. I actually started on Kijiji. I would just look for bands that are looking for players, and I met some people when I started. First, it was like just pure cover bands playing, pubs and restaurants. Always leaning towards like the 60s and the 50s, and then at some point, I don't know how to tell this story tactfully, but someone came to me
You don't have to be tactful.
Yeah.
Someone, Paul.
Someone came up to me and said, "What are you doing with this band? You should do your own thing." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, let's put together a band." And that's where I started the 25 Rockers.
Right.
Yeah, so we did Rockabilly. We have, I think it's still out there in the ether. It was like a demo of about 6 regional songs that we wrote, and then for some reason the band kind of didn't go anywhere. So I just all right, I'll do it on my own.
Right. You do a lot of solo performances as well. Like, what's the mix for you?
Yeah, I mean, I like this. I enjoy playing with people. By all means, Gary, you saw me at the festival. It's a lot of fun. Sharing music on stage without a musician, I think nothing compares to it. I remember the first time when the songs that I wrote were performed by other people. I'm like, that is an amazing feeling.
That's
Something that
awesome.
I wrote is suddenly bigger than me. It is shared
Yeah.
amongst other people.
It's a holy
And
moment.
it definitely is a holy moment. It was like so. It's like I don't know. I never tried LSD, but I think that's what it's like. It's like you
But longer.
you lose your ego completely.
Longer.
You're like, okay, this is bigger than me, and I have to accept it.
Yeah.
But I also like playing solo. It gives me a certain versatility to try songs that are a little bit more like either sound a little more intimate or sound a little more rootsy.
Mhm.
For example, people used to call me bad jokes with music. Right? Yeah, and then and I also like the juxtaposition of music. So my next album that's coming out is going to alternate between, the social commentary song that you heard, the Banks of Marble, and some other ones, and then there'll be some songs that are extremely intimate and very romantic. For instance, the little promo for my upcoming album.
Here we go. Another great segue. Paul Cat Fiddle, everybody. It's more live music.
This is a song I wrote. I was panically afraid of motorcycles on the road. Like I've never been on one in my life, and I read somewhere that in order to conquer your fears, you have to face them head on. So if you're afraid of flying, get a pilot's license. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get myself a motorcycle license. I'm probably not gonna ride, but I'm just gonna get it so I understand. So I went and like did the M1 test, which is just written answers. And then I went to because I don't have any friends who rode motorcycles, so I didn't have anybody who could teach me. So I went to a motorcycle school, and on that very first day, they put you on the bike and they just push it, and you're sitting there. It's not even started, right? They just push you to get the feel of what it's like being on 2 wheels, and that's the moment where I knew that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like if I didn't have to carry guitars, I would be riding to all the gigs, on the motorcycle. So, anyways, this is a song called "The Rider." Well, I need to settle up and settle in heaven on the road. I feel lighthearted as I always do. I love these hazy and dusty miles of train, and the northern wind that carries me to you. I'm riding through the belt of green and through the sleeves of gray. The setting sun reflecting in the crow. They say that Rome's the place where all the white roads must end, but my heart only leads me to your home. And when the sun sinks low somewhere Somewhere beyond the city light, the hive will sleep until another day. That's when we'll ride together while you hold me in your arms. The northern wind will carry us away. The northern wind will carry us away.
Well, thank you, everybody. Absolutely, looking at a motorcycle. I've been riding for 40 years.
Yeah, and I know it's not a typical motorcycle. Like got two motor running.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's
a
an
little,
old-
it's a little, it's
it's
a little
a
slow.
motorcycle.
It's for people who ride hogs. You know, like you're not in a rush. You're not it's called crotch rocket.
Right.
Yeah, like you're not in a rush to weave in the traffic. You're just sitting there on the highway.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's been good weather for riding. Have you been out?
It has been, yeah. I just got my motorcycle at the shop 2 days ago. We had some issues. I rode from Toronto to the motorcycle shops these days. So it took almost a week for it to get fixed.
Oh, we have everybody wants
I'm
to
back
go.
on the road for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this weekend for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I find that I do some of my best thinking when I'm riding. Actually, it just clears my head fully and
It's like
totally.
meditation. isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. I've always struggled with meditation, any forms. But walking or riding a motorcycle, because you're not distracted, you're connected with the road, you're not distracted by the radio playing, you're not distracted by the controls, it's like also intuitive. Yeah, I don't know, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, you prefer to ride like country roads, that kind of thing, or yeah.
The windier, the better.
Sure, absolutely. And I noticed that you were you're talking about you've got a new recording in the cooker right now.
Yes.
You've been quite prolific. I noticed that you put 3 albums out in 3 years there.
Yeah, and, part of this, and I think every artist will tell you that is that there's a pressure to build a catalog that you can demonstrate,
Right.
and then there's also the pace at which you got to do that. And so I was going through a lot, like in my personal life, I was going through a lot, and so there was a lot of the catalog that I wanted to put out, but because it was therapeutic for me. There's things that
Catharsis, man, for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Yeah, like you put something in. So I'm not very eloquent, as you can tell by this radio interview.
Don't beat yourself up on that.
You sit right in here.
You
You sit
are
right in here.
eloquent as hell.
Yeah, but when you put something into a song, it suddenly gets a life of its own. It's a work of art. It's not just you saying something. I think it's like a form of a diary,
Yeah,
And,
sure.
and just like with a diary, you look back on them and what is the youth is calling them? Sometimes you feel cringe. You're like, oh, is that how I felt in the moment? Yes, and own it. So there's things like that. But yeah, now I'm taking my time and I'm not censoring per se, but I'm selecting the songs that I want the world to hear
Sure.
because I want. My approach to albums has always been I want to tell a story. So
Overreaching through the whole record.
so like
kind of a
you know what
story
they
and
did in the
art,
old days is like I guess the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band is a great story. I mean it's
Actually,
entertainment stuff,
yeah,
but it's
theme.
a story. There's
Sure.
a theme, and I want to lead the listener. It's so easy these days to not want to own albums, but want to I like this one song, take it out, and
Yeah.
and it always feels to me like it's out of context. Something on the radio that I like. I write it down, I put it on my phone and notes, and then I go and I research the entire album, where it came from.
Right.
Yeah, because I want to see what the artist wanted to say through his art, what were they going through. I feel more related to them that way.
Sure.
And
you
I
get some
want
context,
that's
right?
my approach to albums. I want this is what it's about.
When you're making it.
Yeah.
And what about your process? Like you said, you wanted to build a catalog. So did you come or sit down with a guitar and a pad and the ethos to today's writing? I'm gonna write a song. I'm gonna really work it out and get it on paper, or do you is it a more ethereal process for you, where a little bit comes, a little bit goes? Like, how does it work for
I
you?
think it's a little bit of both. That's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both because
And especially songwriting is like a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. So you can train yourself to write songs and kind of see them a little more critically. My first album, it was definitely, I just want to like, let it all out. It's all pent up. I just wanted to be out there. So the approach was I wrote all the songs except for one, the title song, Sophisticated. It actually took me almost a year to write it because I started it and it just didn't work on the guitar. And then I set it at the piano and immediately in like 15 minutes everything came together. But between those occurrences when I wrote some of it, like how does it work? At the moment where I sat at the piano and started playing it on the piano, it was like a whole year in between.
Mm-hmm.
And then some days there are songs that I come back to and like I want to redo this, I want to rethink this. And some songs are like Huxley Workman, right? Like I don't know if you were.
Yeah.
He's produces. He writes, records, produces, and releases a song in one day because he says the next day I'm going to be bored with it.
Right.
And I've had a couple songs like that as well. Like the one I played earlier, Once Had a Girl. It's a true story. The guy said this phrase to me, and it just built in my head. And like 11 o'clock in the evening, I got home and I just jotted it down. It was there. Yeah, it was there.
Yeah, that's funny that they come in different. Same thing experience-wise myself. It's definitely the muscle. The more you're working the muscle, but I feel like it leads to an openness in a way to perceive the world and take those little tidbits of information, a turn of phrase or something that you might see visually that connects, and you're able to articulate it musically. But it's coming. I feel like it's coming through and being tuned in, and then like. More so as that I'm creating all that stuff. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you also have to be in the right circumstances, like in the right frame of mind, and again, this is gonna. I'm reluctant to admit it on public radio, but I felt more constricted when I was in Toronto because there's a constant push for the songs to be a little more about like. Okay, they have to be marketable, commercially viable. You feel that push because living in a big city, and St. Petersburg is a city twice the size of Toronto. So that feeling for like you gotta be a part of the rat races, and I want to be like Ringo Starr, stop and smell the roses. So
you felt that being in that music community it came with pressure as well.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's just if I'm not in a position to give advice to other artists. Everybody has their own way, and I love and respect this. But I think a lot of us, people that have been great artists, but a lot of us are under pressure. You have to be, maintain your social media, get bookings, be at all the festivals, release new music, market new music. There's so much that is expected of us.
Outside the artistic process.
I always feel like it's, I'm 80% businessman, 20% artist.
Yeah.
And it's hard with this because I started writing my own songs and performing my own songs for therapy.
Yes.
There are and I was lucky enough that in some situations I didn't even have to look for validation like this because anybody who receives fan mail, any artist who receives fan mail knows that their art is valid. I wrote a song. It was just for my own personal, again, letting out some emotions, letting out some thinking, some thoughts. And then I received a message from a lady out in Alaska who said, I'm a model. I was in a car accident. I was temporarily not able to work and, depressed in bed, couldn't get out of bed for weeks. And then your song came on in a playlist. And I listened to it on repeat for like a good portion of the day. And I was able to get out of bed, open my laptop, and start working on some stuff that I meant to be working. I got inspired. And as I'm reading this, I'm practically crying. It's like, this is all I ever needed. I know that, my art is not in vain anymore. It's not just for me, it's just somebody out there who did it. And so once in a while I receive a message and someone says, hey man, this song is amazing. I met with a girlfriend and we heard this song and this song forever associates to me, with meeting my partner in life now. And I'm like,
music.
Amazing, man. Like,
humanity.
thank you so much. And I want to share this with all the other artists, is that there's very few people who actually take that step and reach out to us and tell us what our art did for them. But there's a lot of them. For every artist, there are hundreds out there, and that's why we should never stop. We should never let ourselves get, not disenfranchised. What's the word I'm looking for? Discouraged
Yes.
from
All that
not
business market,
receiving.
80% of the other garbage you're talking about.
Exactly.
is-
Yeah. So
is
this
what wears you
80%,
down.
they do help people out there.
But,
So this is business.
Art's meant to be shared.
Yeah.
For sure. How are we doing on time, Gary?
One more song?
We got time. How about that song that you were talking about?
Oh,
that you were,
sure.
performing?
Okay, I'm gonna change it up. It's a little different. It's called Nervous, and it's on my most recent studio album. Most recent, 2001. It feels like a decade ago. And it's a slow ballad there, but I kind of don't want to finish on a quiet note. I want to go out with a bang. So I'm gonna change it up a little bit. It's the same song though. Why do you make me nervous? Why do you make me dumb? For I can't forget the night when we met, and this silhouette in the hazy sunset. I have been looking forward to all the wonders of you. It's just like a dream, don't know what you see, just a mirage of fleeting green. So I mustered up the courage and wrote for you this song. Say it's nice, but I'll pay the price for believing in this paradise. And still you can make me nervous, and still you can make me dumb.
What a great pleasure to have you, Paul.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
Really respect and enjoy your art, really your authenticity, and if the people want to, from the Connect Tunes Radio universe world, we want to find you, you're on all the socials, all the platforms.
Everywhere, yes.
PaulKafka.com,
Yes,
Instagram, Facebook,
Instagram, Paul Kafka Music, Facebook,
YouTube,
Paul Kafka Music,
everything.
YouTube, yes, yeah, there's some pretty cool videos.
And are you going to be playing any live shows coming up?
Yes, I am playing one in October in Toronto. That will be at the John Taberna. I think the one we were talking about. It's a Sunday, October 26th or 27th. I can't remember which day it is. Yeah, it's going to be at 7 p.m.
What about here in the Hammer? You got any
I
gigs
gotta
coming
get,
up?
so my drummer lives in the Hammer, so we gotta get more gigs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You fit right in here.
Yeah, thank you. The new album is recorded out on the old school recording studio, which is on the what's called York York and Highway 6,
Okay.
like on that corner. So I have a Hamilton bench. That song I just played, the bass player on that song is Trevor from King Jags.
King Jags.
Yeah, so like I have connections to Hamilton.
Trevor Rogers,
Trevor Rogers.
57 Trevi, yeah, that's
Okay.
him. So go check it out as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing in Hamilton, the coming months.
Great.
Thank you
Paul
for
Cathey,
having me.
everybody.
Hill, corner of John Street South at Augusta, Hamilton's own pub.
Thank you so much. That was a
Pleasure, man. Pleasure to meet you.
No, likewise, I appreciate it. You made me feel easy. So that's
Good.
I ate it twice. I like
I'm gonna hit you on the social.
the start of the show.
I understand.
We're gonna have you on now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's been a stressful day.
Oh, this is Alex. The owner of that pub.
How you doing? I wish I could have listened to you.
He's great. Yeah.
I heard there's going to be a recording, so.
Yeah.
Catch up.
Well, I'll catch it now.
Be good for,
Have you, yeah. How's your band?
Just a few pieces, upright bass, drums, and myself.
And where are you from?
I live in Kitchener right now.
Oh, shit.